So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Whitney Stoll. I'm your DC Post First Vice President. Alongside me is Bree Beal, and our program director, and who is hosting the team's webinar, and we'll be monitoring our chat today. Thank you all for joining us. So we have about nearly 100 registered participants from all over the country for this for our April program. So I know you can't wait to jump into the presentation today. So it's my pleasure to welcome you all to our April 1st Friday luncheon session featuring Judy Brandt from Summit Insight, who are presenting Mighty Micro Purchase Sole Source Superpower. And so we'll learn more about Judy's work with specialty procurement resources like purchasing cards and OTAs. But I'd like to start to welcome by introducing you to our First Friday series, which provides you through SAME's commitment to offering the AEC community effective training, development, and networking programs. The DC Post is helping sustain the future of the profession with these monthly education focused sessions through relevant content for our industry. So thank you all for joining us here today as we start our program. But first, I'd like everyone to go ahead and turn off your video unless you're a presenter. Go ahead and mute yourself if you haven't already. And please feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself. Please let us know where you're calling in from, and your name of your company and your position. So please feel free to leverage the chat. Throughout the presentation, feel free to ask questions so we can address them during the Q&A portion at the end. Again, this is a lunchtime session for those joining us on the East Coast, so feel free to eat your lunch during this program. We're so glad you can join us here today, and we're happy that we can offer this virtual program to our community regardless of where you're attending from. Let's start with a moment of silence to remember all our active duty military, first responders, and all those who need our care and thoughts throughout the world right now. Thank you. And please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our DC Post sponsors for your support. AMT, Black & Veatch, Christopher Consultants, Consigli, Gannett Fleming, Spinny Yellow, Stantec, WSP, Jacobs, Woods Peacock, AB Facility Service Solutions, RHA Consulting, and Stanley Consultants. We truly appreciate your support. We cannot pull off these events without you, and are grateful for your outstanding sponsorship. Your support helps us meet our society goals, including providing excellent content for our members, industry and government engagement, building resilient communities, and connecting with our future leaders through our student and young member groups, enriching our STEM pipeline, and preparing our military and veterans for life after service. If you're not already a DC Post sponsor and would like to support our post with annual sponsorship, we'd love to add your name to the list for future programs and events this year. Please visit our website for more information about sponsorship levels, and we can give back to your community through the DC Post sponsorship. And now it's time for the main program. Please note that this program provides one professional development hour from the DC Post. Look for an email with the subject line document delivery from DC Post and Eventbrite with a copy of the program slides and your PDH certificate. We are recording this session, and we will post a video on our website later on. And I'm not going to read the learning objectives on the slide, since most of you saw the same objectives when you registered. Instead, I'm going to introduce our presenter. While I do the introduction, if you haven't done so already, please use the chat to introduce yourselves, share contact information, and where you're from. And throughout the presentation, please feel free to ask questions, comments for our presenter. And when we'll have time at the end of the presentation to actually ask those questions We might ask you to turn on your video to ask the questions directly. So for now, so please mute yourself and turn off your video during the presentation. So Judy Brandt is the CEO of Summit Insight, and she brings over 35 years as an expert solving the biggest challenges of government contracting by sharing the secrets of building the relationship that we need to succeed with federal buyers. As a consultant, speaker, and author, she has helped thousands of established businesses find their fast track to success in the federal arena. She's literally written the book on how to get clients on track to get in front of the right federal buyers with players and layers methodology, which has helped their clients win over $200 million in federal business. When Judy's not doing government contracting, she's a scuba diver, pilot, and professional rock climbing instructor. So we're definitely in for a treat. So Judy, thank you for joining us today. Definitely super excited for this. So I'm going to turn the program over to you, and it's all yours.
Hey, thank you, Whitney. It is a joy and an honor to join this chapter of SAMI and bring you some thoughts that I hope will put you on track to achieving your goals, whether you're in the government buyer role or a vendor role or something else. So let's jump in. Here's what we're going to cover. Common first win obstacles, what purchase cards actually are, why sole source awards are so hard to win, where micro purchases are published, the 3 things contracting officers want, how federal buyers make micro purchases, when they give you an advantage, and some ideas to adapt your offerings to micro purchase, next steps and resources. Let's jump in. So, what's so hard about federal wins? Here are things that I talk to thousands of companies all year long, and the kinds of things that people talk about include it's hard to get on a contract vehicle. There's no SAM notices for what we do. There's no set asides for companies like ours. Proposals are breaking us. Teaming partners we get on their portals, yak, 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 they never use us. We can't find the right people. We need to make contact with buyers. If one or more of those things sound familiar, you're not alone. Because you're part of this SAMI chapter, a few of those things are not problems for you because you're in the place where buyers and vendors come together. So I want to start out by saying, congratulations. Feel the woohoo of being part of SAMI in the federal arena. Some easy fixes for some common obstacles include if you're struggling with being on the right contract vehicles, you want to make sure that you start with the data on how buyers purchase. I'm going to actually show you a little bit of data and give you some to play with after the session is finished because SAMI is special and you are some of the smartest, most accomplished people in the federal arena. No SAM notices for what we do. Stop asking, what can I bid? And start asking the question, who's my buyer? And start tracking and following people who are buying, whose role and title and responsibilities and activity either directly relate to buying what you do, or they're buying something else that suggests that they're going to be needing you soon. If there's no set-asides or sole sources for you, understand the data about how the people you want to do business with actually purchase first, then make some friends. If proposals are breaking you, take a step back. If your win rate is low, then pasting proposals to the wall is what's breaking you. Think about changing how you're deciding what's a good fit for you. And I have tools for that as well. If you want those tools, contact me or just drop a note in the chat saying proposal checklist or bid checklist, okay? Teaming partners don't use us. Think of your teaming partners as really, when you think about them, I want you to channel their inner 6-year-old. Imagine that when you're walking up to the door to the threshold to go and meet somebody, normally the way that vision works, you get closer and they get bigger. Instead, you're having this surreal experience that the closer you get to the door, the smaller they get. And you get to the threshold. Instead of this 6-foot person, there's this 6-year-old going, Mom, what did you bring me? Your teaming partners want you to bring them business, bring them contacts. So think about it that way. That shifts the dynamic. Finding the right person, your buyer's more than one person. You need to find the players at all 5 layers, and we're going to talk about that too. And if you want to be meeting the right buyers, research, focus, and referrals all help. The critical issue for your first win in a new office, your first win with a federal buyer ever, is often wrapped around your buyer's risk threshold. If your federal buyer is concerned about whether or not you're really committed to them, then showing up again and again with the buyer who you know needs what you do and being unafraid, because our brains make stuff up, being unafraid that maybe someone will think I'm a pest. If you keep showing up and bringing value, energy, good ideas, occasionally the thing that your buyer needs is a competent bid in the file to show that they shopped, but you're giving them something else that they need. If you're able to focus, then you can afford to keep showing up with the right people. So your time comes. Past performance can also lower your buyer's perception of you as a vendor of being risky. Bring resonant examples of how you solved their problem for someone who just looks just like them yesterday afternoon. Starts to get their attention. And the size of the opportunity. Sure, as vendors, we want to win the big thing, but if they've never heard of us, then no matter how bright the smile, no matter how firm the handshake, the only thing they're really seeing when we cross the threshold is a big ball of risk, and they don't like risk. So being able to focus the kind of opportunity that you want to win on something that is very similar in size and scale and scope to, if you think of the normal distribution curve, if you were to plot the size of the projects you've done, this is one where you could do another 10 like these today. You have lots of financing, lots of people, it would be easy. That's the size of one that you might want to focus your efforts on looking at, but as well look at the tail, look at the smallest thing that you can do and show your stuff. That first win can be small, but the feeling of success for buyer and seller is awesome. This is Scott, and this is me in our role leading GovCon Rockstars. We actually lead this is a tangent, give me 60 seconds. On the fourth Thursday of the month, we bring together government buyers and federal contractors to do indoor rock climbing. This is Scott. Scott has just come down from making his first ascent ever. This is his first physical win in doing something new, and you can see the joy on his face. That's the same kind of feeling that I want you to have with the win that you get, your next win with your federal buyer, and the next award you as a federal buyer make to a new vendor with confidence down on the floor in one piece. That's where we're going. Buyers are asking 4 questions. And I want you to, if you're a federal buyer, I want you to put a thumbs up or an emoji in the chat. And I want to ask Whitney to let me know what we're getting. Here are the 4 things that federal buyers are thinking. Do I know you? Do I like you? Do I trust you? And then finally, how can I get to you? If that sounds familiar, if that resonates, put a thumbs up or smiley face in the emojis or in the chat. And Whitney, let us know, are we getting some activity? Is this resonating or am I making stuff up?
Well, give us a second. We're getting a combination of some claps, some thumbs up, a couple of thumbs up.
All right.
Someone's celebrating a birthday, it looks like. So
all right. So I'm not making this stuff up. This is real. Thank you, my federal buyers, that you're really important to us. You're backstopping me. So, all right, what's the deal about P cards? I get people asking me, oh, but P cards, can I email all the P card holders? My inside source of intelligence on this, I'm going to identify her, is Anna Ehrman. Anna Ehrman, who, if you know in the DC or Northern Virginia area, you might have known her from her many different roles as business owner, counselor, leader. Most recently, she departed the small business shop inside State Department and is now doing vendor outreach for Veterans Affairs. Longtime counselor, guide, champion for small business, award-winning leader, and also fellow data geek. And we did the data together and we had a long chat over coffee over this one. So what's the deal about P cards? Ever heard that meme? Gee, you don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun the person who's slower than you. The person in a lot of agencies who holds the P card is the one who ran the slowest. It is not the favorite job. What's a P card exactly? Let's go to the source. I'm not going to make stuff up. Government uses the P card to make micro purchases, to place a task or delivery order that's against an existing contract, and to make payments where the contractor agrees to get payment by credit card. So a P card It's a way to get paid. It's a way to get paid. In order to get paid, you actually have to win the work. So think of the P card as kind of almost the cash register, the place where the petty cash, the little purchases are made. So who gets paid with P cards? We went through the data of all of the purchases that were recorded in federal fiscal 2022, and we looked. And so we got over $2 billion were done with P cards across all products and services, federal government, and about 253 million were done in transactions coded with NAICS codes corresponding to AE and construction. And so interestingly, AE and the proportion of small versus not small businesses in AE is exactly flipped over with the rest of the world. And so small businesses, and this makes sense, get 70% of the contract dollars for which P cards are used in AE. Very different, the exact opposite from the rest of the in the aggregate entire world, including AE and non-AE. So be with that for a minute. How are P cards used in AE and construction? Indefinite delivery vehicle definition. I'm going to make one of my 2 contracting jokes. An indefinite delivery vehicle is not the courier truck that cannot find your house. Indefinite delivery vehicle, then that's contract vehicles that could include GSA schedules, BOSS contracts, MATOC contracts, things where you have a basic contract and then orders are placed against it. IDVs also include blanket purchase agreements, which again, you've got central terms and conditions, which might be borrowed from another vehicle. And then the money in the blanket purchase agreement is topped up. The more money is put into the bucket, but it doesn't have to be a separate competition. Okay. So 40% of P card spending in AE is done for a standalone purchase. Hi, we want a thing. Okay, so definitive contracts and purchase orders, those 2 line items, 60% of the spend in AE for which purchase cards are used is, hi, we want to get paid for a task order or a delivery order against another contract we already have in place. Okay. Now, if this is interesting, if this is news, if this clears up something for you, put a thumbs up or a yes or a thank you or a TY in the chat. Tell me whether or not this is helpful for sorting out what's the deal with P cards. Okay. Whitney, let me know whether we're already kind of hitting the mark here. Meantime, what are P cards being used for? And so this includes both definitive and IDV contracts. And you can see the top 10 things that P cards are being used for: construction, facility support, engineering services, construction services, security guards, hardware manufacturing, furniture, architectural services, moving. And then, so that takes up about, math in public, about 60% of the spend is the top 10 codes. So think small, win big. The keys to success for whether it's P cards or micro purchase, solve a problem somebody's got. All right, I'm going to ask, because we are a chapter and we've got each other's backs. All right, if you are really, really brave, all right, this is my challenge to you, federal buyers. I want you to think for a moment. If you have got some pesky project and it never goes away, and it's never quite the high priority, it's a job nobody wants, you would really like to freaking get this thing done, and boy, it would be a real star on your performance appraisal if you could get the pesky job done sometime this year. Who's got a pesky job and who is brave? Put me in the chat. Just put me. You don't have, and everybody else, you have to not hit on these people, but who's got the pesky job that won't go away? Whitney, is there are there any brave people on the call?
Nothing yet, but if something pops up, I'll let you know.
That's okay. But I can see the thought balloons out there. I have an ability to see thought balloons. We've all got them. When I used to work at the Canadian Embassy in Washington, D.C., I had the Canadian federal government fiscal year end was March 31st. And second week of January, somebody would come trailing down the hall going, who can help me spend 30,000? Going, I can. I had my February funding fairy file. I had my file of stuff and I knew what I wanted to spend and who I wanted to work with, who I wanted to compete it among. And I had that ready to go as soon as somebody came with money. That happens for real in federal, state, local governments everywhere because people know money can skew to the end of the year. The thing that you can do that's small doesn't even have to be under $10,000. There's other kinds of simplified acquisition, and I'm going to talk about those in 60 seconds at the end, that can also represent contracts that can be awarded relatively quickly and easily. 60% of that small spend, remember, find a contract vehicle, look at the data, see which indefinite delivery vehicles, contract vehicles, the people you want to work with are already using and who has those. End users as well as contracting officers can hold P cards. A P card can be used for transactions worth much more than $10,000. It depends on the authority, the warrant, the value of the warrant that is issued to the P card user. So it varies by user and expected need. A lot of the time, the P card user is running the transaction for an end user as well. So hitting on the P card user isn't necessarily going to be very helpful. You need to also be aware of who's the end user, who's the person who needs what it is that you do. Not all end users hold P cards. Not all P card holders are end users. I'll spare you the Venn diagram. Okay. So once again, remember, P cards are just the way to get paid. First, we got to win the work. So what's competed and not competed in federal fiscal 2022? You had $694 billion and change of federal contract spend. 72% of that spend was competed one way or another, which, math in public just for you, 28% of those dollars are not available for competition or were not competed, large and small. Now, especially if your business is small. Then what about small business awards? What about sole source awards to small business? Those are uncommon. What do you think the percentage is of federal contract dollars awarded sole source across all the small business programs in 2022? Throw a number in the chat. What percentage do you think it would be? This isn't a scary thing. Just throw a guess in the chat. What do you think it would be? Whitney, what do you think it would be?
Well, I like how you put me on the spot.
Yeah, put you on the so everybody rescue Whitney.
Yeah,
it's like Peter Pan. Clap your hands. What are the numbers in the chat?
It's less than 1%. So 10. We have 10%, less than 5%. You know, I'm gonna say it's gonna probably be around 8%, 5.2%, 2.6%. All right, so that's technically Melanie. Yeah, Melanie is the closest. Right now.
So, well done, so what's the deal? What's so tough about this stuff? Federal sole source awards represent a lot of justification, documentation, complex approval, oversight, time, risk. Gee, the idea of sole source, great for me, really not nice for a lot of your end users. Look at the list. What sole source looks like to the contracting officer, take 5 minutes and read FAR 6.303 for other than full and open competition. She's got to describe what she wants to buy, show that the pricing is fair, provide and certify that the data about justification is complete, get the approvals, document how the unique qualifications of the nature of the acquisition require a sole source, show that she looked for as many potential sources as practicable, document any market research or why it wasn't done, show efforts to procure competitively, list any other vendors that expressed interest, publish a notice of intention to sole source, document any assertion that the cost of competing and awarding the requirement to a different vendor would be excessive or harmful to the government. That isn't even something I can say with one breath. That's a lot of work and a lot of risk. Now, if an acquisition can be done in a way that one of the many options to show that they shopped, then they don't have to do all of this stuff because someone is always leaning over a contracting officer's shoulder going, why didn't you compete that? Who's had that experience in contracting? Thumbs up. Let me see the thumbs up, the yes, the happy face. Who agrees that sole source has a lot of pressure on you? 3 things federal contracting officers want. Here they are. Write this down. Is at the end of this, I'm going to ask you, what's your aha? What's your share? What was really resonating with you? The 3 things contracting officers want are these. Follow the rules. Make it easy. Make me look good. Follow the rules. Make it easy. Make me look good. Those are very human things. And if you're doing all three of those things, if you're approaching someone you haven't worked with before, and you can show you're constantly focused on one or two or all three of those things, it's a great way to open the door. And it's certainly something that you want to be focused on all the way through relationship building, contract award, contract performance. So if nothing else, write that down, share it, post it on your wall. The two keys to success, the top advice from people who are successful in growing their federal business are start small, be persistent. Small is beautiful when it comes to that. So those of you who are boat people, sailors, you may be familiar with the term the monkey's fist. It's a heaving line to pull across a heavier line, such as one for towing or docking. You land the tiny little weight with the tiny little knot on the end of it, and then you can attach a heavier line and a heavier line and a heavier line. Micro purchase is that monkey's fist. Warranted federal contracting officers have the authority to make small purchases of goods and services with minimal or no competition if the price is reasonable, following the rules in FAR subpart 13.2. They don't have to do any small business preferences. They don't have to pay attention to Buy American under there. Micro purchase represents a low risk opportunity to build trust. Brene Brown, who is a gifted researcher and great communicator, if you're not familiar with her work, you want to look up the model that she presents in Dare to Lead, breaking out 7 principles on which trust is built. She had done tens of thousands of interviews and really grouped the characteristics of trust down to these 7 things. I teach this as a completely separate class and point people to the free resources on her website, but those include boundaries, reliability, accountability, the vault, that's confidentiality, integrity, non-judgmentality, and generosity. I was teaching this to one of my clients yesterday, and one of them said, these are all really tied together. I went, yeah, they really are. Micro purchase gives you that chance to demonstrate these things because how you do anything is how you do everything. I'm going to say that again. How you do anything is how you do everything. So a micro purchase, a small project, gives you an opportunity to demonstrate all of these things in a small way and give someone the feeling of comfort that maybe you can do something bigger for them. Okay, I love this work. I encourage you to go and take a look at Rising Strong and the Dare to Lead Hub on Brene Brown's website. So let's meet Mighty Micro Purchase, which I call Sole Source Superpower because it was a bouncy way to introduce the topic. Sole source for buyers represents faster than a speeding solicitation. It's a low dollar value, which represents low risk. There's minimal documentation and data entry that someone has to do. There's very little research or competitive activities that have to take place to do one. It lets you establish trusted suppliers with lower risk. It can solve fiscal year-end spending problems, and the spend continues to rise over time. For vendors, it's also a micro purchase signals that a buyer is beginning to trust you. It creates some initial cash flow. Thank you very much. Who here? I'm not even going to ask you to put a note in the chat. Who wouldn't mind having another $9,500 in your bank account? I know I wouldn't mind. That, not only that, what do you get besides $9,500 in your bank account? Past performance. I did business with the United States Marine Corps. Okay, it was a $2,500 stairwell repair, but you did business with the United States Marine Corps. How great is that? They don't choose just anybody. Finish a small job, get fast payment. All good for us. These can be invisible to your competitors. These often don't show up on big, hairy solicitations. So you can be nibbling opportunities off your competition's back porch or teaming with them as well. It can give you opportunities for successively larger reorders. Please understand that unbundling a big requirement into small pieces is a no-no. Okay, that's not according to the rules. So that's breaking one of the follow the rules, make it easy, make you look good. That is neither following the rules nor helping somebody in the long run look good. Do not do that. It is an opportunity to grow and an opportunity for referrals as well. Do well, get referred. Somebody in the next office might have a bigger requirement, and you're not going to get that introduction if you don't perform well in the little thing. It also gives you the opportunity to bid on or take part in larger opportunities. In contingency response or disaster response, a micro purchase can be worth up to $20,000. Micro purchase is also vulnerable. Again, I mentioned buyers can't unbundle a bigger purchase. Do not do that. This comes back to the eye of integrity and braving. If somebody talks about unbundling it, say, no, we can't do that. Micro purchases, according to the FAR, should be distributed equitably among vendors. So you really can't count on, oh, we're going to be eating from the trough all the time. No. Play nice. Repeated purchases suggest that the vendor should be using a different vehicle. So this is training wheels. It's a start, which is great. The heaving line. Price has to be reasonable, and the buyers need to have shown that they have considered the mandatory sources in FAR Part 8. So may doesn't mean shall. All the buyers out there, I can hear you going, yeah. If just because you can use a particular purchase method doesn't mean that you have to. Federal buyers hold all the cards. They have lots of choices, but if they like you and they trust you, they might be willing to work with you. For vendors, don't propose unbundling the big things. Remember that you can't win them all. These happen at the CO or KO's discretion. And public purchasing still means that this is happening in the daylight. You're up for public scrutiny, and you must always be engaged in discussions and purchase and contract award and delivery, understanding this is happening in the full light of day. Don't ever do anything that you don't want everybody to know about. And so those are things to think about. It's the buyer's choice, not yours. Now, remember that I'm going to beg you not to print out FAR Part 13 and roll it into a big stick and bash your way into the contracting office. That's not going to go well. Do not ever tell a contracting shop how to do their job. Here's what you do. Hi, we're new here. We've been reading about simplified acquisition, or we've been reading about micro purchase. How does that work in your shop? Tell us, teach us. We'd like to learn. We want to be your best vendor. We want to understand, how does it work for you? Okay, that's a thing that you can write it down till it feels comfortable. I'm a sponge. Teach me. I want to be your best vendor. So details about micro purchase. Federal Acquisition Regulation Subpart 13.2 is where you find the details. Purchase method and procedures in 13.202 and 32.1110. Any acquisition method described at Subpart 13.3, they can add provisions. They have to consider mandatory sources of supply. Read the details. I'm not going to read them off the chart, but you need to read them. Okay. The definition is there. So to the extent practicable, distribute them equally. Micro purchases may be awarded without soliciting competitive quotations if the buyer considers the price to be reasonable. So you only have to go and justify price reasonableness under specific circumstances that are sitting there at 203.312 and 3AB. So how big is a micro purchase? In FedCiv and DoD, it can be worth up to $10,000. Unless there's a contingency operation or disaster response, in which case micro purchases can be used for purchases of goods and services up to $20,000 inside CONUS and $30,000 out OCONUS. Where are they advertised? They're not. People those are requirements that you're going to hear about through relationships. How do I win a micro purchase? Somebody introduces you to somebody who needs a thing. Somebody trusts you enough to say, hey, can you help us with this thing? Maybe you've made a capability presentation and you've got the check marks for all the things you do. And they go, oh, you do that? What we call best values. What are the unique things that set you apart? That mean you're going to be the low risk, high performance choice. If you continue to show up and build the relationship. That can help. Sometimes, again, this can happen if you're not pasting proposals on walls across the country, but you've picked the 3 or 4 offices where you keep showing up. You're willing to be a good sport. You're willing to participate in sources sought responses, RFIs, RFQs, and you're building the relationship. You're getting debriefings. They're getting to know you better. They may have a little thing coming up they can help you with. And sometimes you're the person in the right place. You called on a day when they just really need you. Sometimes it's price too. All of these things can help. Relationships, relationships, relationships. Micro purchases are a relationship sale. That means that in your neighborhood, getting to know the people who are at your SAMI chapter, who are at the bases, at the facilities close to you, get to know them and ask, who do you know who? Somebody who's already paid you money is 12 times more likely to pay you more money than somebody who's never heard of you. Your federal buyer does not wake up in the morning going, how can I dump a bucket of cash on Whitney's head? Now, they should do that, but they don't. They have other things on their minds. By continuing to show up, saying, hey, I really appreciate the opportunity we've had to work together. How else could I help you? Who do you know who would like to have this superlative experience that we've delivered to you? So what does micro purchase look like for you and your buyers? Keys to success. Get the data for your prospects. Some of you are paying money for data subscription services that can help you slice and dice past contract award data. That's not the only way to get that data. If you've been spending your time in sam.gov contract opportunities and you have not invested a precious half day of your life to go in and learn how to use sam.gov contract data, run, do not walk. There's a series of, I think, 5 or 6 videos that total an hour, 60 minutes in all. General Services Administration, which runs this site, has put together information in the ad hoc section of sam.gov contract data. So you can do it yourself and learn how to pull data and start to get research done on using over 208 fields of data that are published every single time a federal buyer purchases something. You don't need all the data, but investing your time, you're going to spend time and you're going to spend money. All you get to choose is the mix. One more time. You're going to spend time and you're going to spend money. All you get to choose is the mix. So if you don't necessarily need to be spending 10, 20, 30, $40,000 on a fancy database, if you can get the intelligence you need from sam.gov contract data. Break out the P card information, see what contract vehicles they use. If your company, your organization is small, tap the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Organization or the SADBU in your command. Take a look at their website first before you call them. Come in with very specific questions. Say, hey, we've been looking at the data. Here's what we're finding. What are we missing? Discover end users and talk with them about problems and money and vehicles and timing and wish lists. I love this. Then pay a call on the contracting shop together, you and your end user over to the contracting shop. Now, in some instances, the end user shop and the contracting office are working together hand in glove. They're lovey-dovey. They're on the same team. They're all working to get it done. There are other shops where the end users think of contracting as the purchase prevention department, and contracting thinks the end users shouldn't be trusted with 10 cents to go buy bubble gum. Figure out what's happening where you are. But want to go and win those small things that open the door to bigger things? Make friends. Make friends long before September 30th. The people who win that skew of purchasing at the end of the year are the ones that made friends and had lots of calls and conversations at this time of year, many months before. Say, hey, how does this work in your office? Or conversations with end users asking the question I did at the beginning. What's the annoying job that won't go away, the project nobody wants? What's on your wish list if you got handed a bunch of cash in August? I will always remember this conversation I had with Joe Schrodel, executive director of SAMI. And it was one of the most revealing and energetic story conversations I have ever had. And any of you who've talked to Joe, you know that this is the treat that you're in for. And he was explaining to me the experience that he had at fiscal year end and how he was an absolute master of getting the money spent by the end of the year. And that's an art form that you want to figure out whether or not the contract shops that you're working with also have. Who are the people who are real good at getting the money spent at the end of the year? Might or might not be in your region, might be in a place where you can help. But have those conversations now. Look at your data now. There are players at every layer that can help you. The way that I teach this to my clients in my community, the 5 layers that I encourage everybody to suss out, look at the people that you know. If you think you want to win business, do you have contacts among the federal program managers and end users? In the contracting shop, contracting officers, contracting specialists, in the small business layer, with industry, your competitors, competimates, small and large, and the stakeholders. That might be the base commander, the cabinet secretary. Do you know who they are? Making sure that every place you want to be successful, you've got people on your side at all the layers really helps. If you've been spending all of your time talking to small business specialists, please understand that 99.9% of the time, the small business specialist is not your buyer. You need to know other people as well. So time to get creative. How could you win those micro purchases? Maybe you've got a limited number of trials, a single location setup, customization, assessment, one-on-one training, repair, webinar, briefing, prototype, sample order, single location, tiny repair. Brainstorm. What could you do for less than $10,000 that can solve a problem that the people that you serve often have and don't even want to talk about? How could you make them a hero? Follow the rules, make it easy, make them look good. What are the little projects that somebody's been tripping over those those stairs with the rusty broken railing all year? What are those things you can help them with? Some development considerations when you're thinking about what could we offer? What are the things that can demonstrate a little bit of the past performance that you're famous for? Make sure that you price realistically. You're not going to give stuff away. Use your real everyday pricing because you don't want to go and have somebody say, hey, wait, you did that for $9.16 and now you're charging $9,600. What gives? Pick some things that are profitable. Don't lowball. Do real life pricing and costing. Consider something where you could do a smaller project and a larger project a little bit more. So create an upgrade path for yourself. Maybe you've got a phased approach. One of my favorite clients, and that would be Jennifer Rhodes, had done a project and had turned a $10,000 micro purchase by doing follow-up into a $1 million contract award win in less than 8 weeks on the path to fiscal year end because she found a mandatory requirement that her agency had to meet. Speed of delivery and completion. Can you get it done quickly? Can this project be scalable if it's successful? And is the person you're approaching in a position to give you other referrals that you would love to have? So we're in under the wire, Whitney. We've got time for questions and dialogue. Things that you can do include reviewing the details of micro purchase regulations, understand the risks and benefits for buyers, risks and benefits for vendors, develop some ideas for micro purchase offerings, get feedback from your current clients. Hey, what are you struggling with? What could we give you a hand with? A little thing. Remember that as well, 60% of the spend happens through existing contract vehicles. So what are the options for engineering changes, for order modifications? Focus on a few target agencies and prospects. So we've covered a lot. We did everything I said we would do. Common first win obstacles and solutions, what purchase cards are, why sole source is such a bear, where micro purchases are published, the 3 things contracting officers want, how federal buyers make micro purchase awards, when they give you an advantage and some ideas. We're going to move to next steps. But while we do that, what's one thing based on what you've learned today that you commit to trying based on what you've learned? I'd love to know, what do you commit to try and buy when? Drop it in the chat. I want to know how we helped you move the needle today. And in the meantime, we've got resources for you because you came. First of all, if you like these ideas, but going, we don't even sneeze for less than $10,000. Okay, do some reading about simplified acquisition, which is also in Federal Acquisition Regulation Part 13. I'd love to come back and tell you more about that. But in the meantime, it's sitting right there. Go learn some more. Have conversations with your buyers about and look at their data on what are the kinds of projects are they doing using simplified acquisition. I have given you data to play with. This is my special gift to you. Give you some of the data of all the P card transactions in federal fiscal 2022 and the subset that are isolated just by the NAICS codes for AE and construction. And so if you go to this link, you'll be able to see an Excel file in Google and you can save a copy and then go to town. You can see the pivot tables that we used. You can isolate it and play with it yourself. This is my gift to you. If you want to know more about players at all 5 layers, what to do, what to say, what to ask, to build relationships, all the information about players and layers, some mini trainings, and a 22-page GovCon Personas guide is also free on my website. Go get it, use it, start to plan. I've also got another thing, and I'll tell you more about that in the follow-up, that gives you 10 different tactics for winning federal fourth quarter business, ideal for anyone who already has past performance and contacts to leverage. Whitney, how'd I do?
No, Judy, that was great. Very, very informative. So I appreciate that. And this is definitely a great time for questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll definitely get going at it. But we had a couple of questions for you first. So say, could you walk me through, say there is an engagement where we could do a micro purchase, just from your experience, what would be the turnaround time for going from the first meeting to actually getting a task order award? You know, could it be could be the possible turnaround?
It could be days. It could be days. It could be hours. Okay. I mean, I remember that I've had wonderful experiences in some of my projects. I remember doing a $2,500 lunch and learn for citizenship and immigration services. And I got paid on a credit card 24 hours after I finished delivering the lunch and learn. I wept. I mean, it was breathtaking. It was lovely. Similarly, again, if you're doing disaster response and somebody needs, they need concrete, or they need temporary shelters, or they need water, they're going to run on the credit card and they're going to pay you. So it can happen really quickly.
Okay. No, that's definitely great. Selena asked and said, which agencies favors P cards, and is there an interest charged that the vendor has to pay?
Let's see here. Whatever the terms are of your vendor account, let me think here. I forget. Okay. I'll look into that. I don't know the actual answer to that. I should, but I don't. So I'm not going to make up an answer. Somebody who is on this call may already know the answer to that. Okay. It may very well be that getting paid through electronic funds transfer might be better. And so again, one of the things that you set up when you set up your SAM is, are you able to take payment by EFT? I think that's one of the fields that you set up. All right. That was a 2-part question. What was the first part of the question?
The first part
I lost it.
Which agencies favor P cards?
In the data, I have all of them, so you can sort it out and see it. I can take a look, but of course DoD does lots. I'm just looking to see. I'm just going to look at the card now. AE P card by. Just a second here. AEP card by department and agency, looking at, so number 1 is DoD. Let's see, DoD, VA, Transportation, Smithsonian, Agriculture, DHS are some of the top ones, but that information is in the data file that I gave you the link to. So you can see every transaction and sort it out. You can also see which contract vehicles did they use P cards to pay on. That data is also there. Okay.
Okay, great.
Because who loves you? I do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Melanie asks, what does the email conversation look like when you reach out to a CO regarding micro purchases? So I guess, so I take it, Melanie, that's your initial engagement reaching out regarding micro purchases, just for clarification.
Is that right? So how do you start the conversation?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. The
Okay.
initial cold
So,
outreach
all right.
or warm
So,
outreach.
hey, you've never heard of me. All right. So things to think about. And remember that it can take, and this is probably a little easier with micro purchases. You need to expect that it can take 15 to 30 instances of connection or attempts to get from contact to contract. 15 to 30. So if you give up after 2 tries, your competition is busy eating your lunch. So understand that. I'm now going to give you a technique that the most successful national call and business development teams use. You want to write this down. It's a technique called double tap. You can expect to do perhaps 4 or 5 cycles of this. So here we go. It is, you say, hi, it's Melanie Blake Patterson. I'm calling from insert name of company. We do ba-dump, and we can help you ba-da. Sorry, I missed you. Check your email for details. If I don't hear from you by noon on Friday, I'll give you a call on Monday afternoon. Then you have the email. That's the first of the double tap. The second half of the double tap is you have that email set to go. It's not long. It may say, hey, this is further to our email. Sorry, I missed your call. We'd love to get your feedback on our capability statement and set up a time to get to know each other for 15 minutes. Here's the link to book the meeting. Love and kisses, your friend Melanie. So you do the voicemail, you send the email, you call on Friday at noon, you don't reach them. Well, now and Whitney goes, oh, Whitney's your buyer. Okay, so, oh, wow, she did what she said she was going to do. Remember, accountability. She did what she said what she was going to do. And she called back when she said she was going to call back. I'm going to wait till Monday and see if she calls me back again. Monday, 1, 2, 2 ringy dingy. Hi, Whitney. It's Melanie again. Sorry, I missed you. Hope you had a great weekend. I'm calling because would love to invite you to our Sammy chapter meeting coming up. Check your email for the invitation. If I don't hear back from you by Wednesday morning, I'll give you a call again on Thursday. Hang up the phone, leave the voicemail, send email number 2, call back. So you get that after about 4 or 5 tries, if this person is living, breathing, and in the country, they know you're not going away anytime soon. They know they better call Melanie back because otherwise she's just going to keep calling. And at the very least, Whitney knows that Whitney can send her over to Bree and she'll be Bree's problem. All right. Everybody get how this works. This is a super powerful technique, and I don't give this away to just anybody. Normally, I just share this with my clients, but I wanted you to have this and give it a try. How's that, Melanie? Does that help? Okay.
Excellent.
Whitney, what else you got?
We have one from Bree. Is it only the KO that you can reach out to, or can you reach out to the PM or other agency team members that you can talk about the P card purchasing options?
Players at all 5 layers. You're not going to talk to the cabinet secretary about P cards, all right? But everybody else, make friends. Say, hey, I looked at the data. I see that the data shows that P cards are used this way. So first of all, how many people are data geeks? Very few. That shows you really do your homework. I'd love to understand how this works in our agency. You talking to the end users. Hey, do you have what kind of a relationship do you have with contracting? Are they your buddies, or are you just constantly struggling with them? Hey, how can we go over together and let them know? Always remember this conversation I had when I worked at the Canadian Embassy. And you remember I was talking about being the spending queen over there. Well, came the day there was a new sheriff in town. Bill Cummings was the new mission financial officer. And boy, there was a lot of spending going on, and Bill didn't like any of it. So all the spending came to an abrupt halt. Nothing was going through. I went, well, that won't do. So I got out of my sneakers and I put on my actual formal shoes and walked down the stairs to the 3rd floor. I said, Bill, my name's Judy. I want to be your best contracting person. He said, well, tell me how things are supposed to work. Well, you should. There are so many things going on. They're all wrong. Nothing is happening. I said, really, Bill? Tell me the way. This is before the Mandalorian days. Like, what is the way? I said, well, you do this and you do this and you do this. And you say, yes, Bill. I was the only person in the whole building that was spending money because I knew the way Bill wanted it done. So find your Bill. Find out how Bill wants it done. Because remember when someone says, the government doesn't do it this way, no, it just means I don't do it that way. As you can tell, I get very excited by this because
very true. Yeah, just because that individual doesn't do it that way. Yeah, no, that's
well, Susie doesn't do it that way. Well, I'm not Susie. The Navy doesn't do it that way. We are the Marine Corps. The Navy is just transportation.
Absolutely. We got one chance for one more. If a couple more come in, we can definitely
yes, please
keep going on. This is from Monica, and Monica, I believe I understand your question correctly. It says when you do your first initial contact, should you mention you have a GSA package, or do you use that when you meet the person first? Is that am I understanding?
If you've invested, if you have multiple contract vehicles, I mean, first of all, you don't have to blow all your thing in one email. If it's going to take multiple taps anyway, first of all, you should have your contract vehicles and have them linked in your email signature. If you don't have that, run, do not walk before you go away for the weekend and update your email signatures so every single contract vehicle you're on is in your email footer and they're linked. Okay, first. But second, then you can then say, oh, we're on the MATOC for this base. You'll say in one. So, oh, hey, we're also on GSA schedule. And save that for another email. Another one, you say, hey, we see that you do that you have 2 BOSS contracts, 3 BPAs, and you're using this other thing. We're on these 2 vehicles, and we've got 4 partners on those other ones. Want to talk? So you've got lots of these are all opportunities for what I teach in a different presentation is micro engagement. Our federal buyers have big, and so do we, big honking goals at the top of their year, at the top of their performance appraisals. Then we've got milestones. Those are the things that we're going, did we make our quarterly numbers? Did we make our monthly numbers? Everybody's kind of got a smaller thing, and they're different by players at all the layers. Then there's the concept of what I call micro engagement, not micro purchase, micro engagement. They're the tiny things that represent progress. Those micro engagement steps. One of my clients talked to me about that the other day. He said, well, we were getting this call back from somebody over at Fort Belvoir, and the contracting specialist wanted us to put a new NAICS code in our SAM profile so that she could send us the RFQ. We thought it was just going to be one other kind of noisy, busy work call. Then we realized that is the micro engagement, the tiny thing she needed that would take 20 minutes of their time hitting enter, 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 enter on SAM. But that was the thing they needed in order to move forward toward both of their goals.
Yeah, no, that's
long answer.
Yeah, that's great. Well, oh no, and any other questions? Feel free. And I know Judy's got a couple of minutes on the back end, but I wanted to and Judy, thank you for all of that. And thank you everyone for participating in today's session. Really appreciated your time with us here today. Definitely a very informative presentation. Great takeaways, and Judy, I definitely agree with you. Starting small, build that comfort, build that relationship and that community with everyone to actually go for the larger contracts. And I know we had a lot of interest from the participants as well. Before I wrap up our program here today, I'd like to share with you some of the upcoming events that we have planned. So please mark your calendars for some of our upcoming local post events that we have coming up. Our next First Friday session is actually going to be on the second Friday of the month, so that those who are attending the JETC can still attend our May session, which will be on May 12, called the New Requirements for Protecting VA Sensitive Information. It will be presented by Derek Kernis of DTS. Registration is open now. As always, SAME members can attend for free, and all registered participants earn 1 PDH. And I'm also excited to share that our upcoming 15th Annual Small Business Conference will be held at the Capitol Turnaround in DC Navy Yard, and you won't want to miss it. So we have federal, state, and local business opportunities for 2023, so you can build a strong network that's focused on small business. And sponsorship closes next week on Tuesday, April 11th, and then regular price tickets close on Tuesday, April 17th. So we've been working on this hard. It's going to be an absolutely amazing conference. So we look forward to having everyone there. And finally, we've already started planning our programming into June, and registration is coming soon in June. Our next first Friday will be on DD Form 1391. And we'll have a joint conference with the ACEC, MW, and CMMA on June 20. And then on, what do we have after that? National is hosting a Department of State OBO Industry Day at the end of June. So be sure to visit our website to mark the calendar with all future upcoming events and programs, and as well as national events as well. So thank you all again for attending our luncheon series. And Judy, thank you again for providing excellent content here today. So please look out for the document delivery for the slides.
Connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'd love to know. And Bree, Whitney, thank you for inviting me and for helping people make great connections.
Absolutely, yes. No, thank you. So everyone have a great weekend, and look forward to seeing you at our next program. So thank you again.